Who were the most ruthless rulers in French history? From the Dark Ages to the dawn of modern Europe, France was forged in fire and blood by kings who were as brilliant as they were brutal. Today, we're counting down the most merciless monarchs to ever sit on the French throne. Let's start way back in the early medieval period with the Merovingian dynasty, an era defined by sheer brutality. First up is Clovis I. This is the guy who united the Franks, but he did it through massacres and forced conversions. He wasn't shy about executing rivals, including his own relatives, and ordered the mass killing of entire tribes that stood in his way. Then there was Clothar I, who took family drama to a whole new level. He murdered numerous family members just to consolidate his power, burned rebel cities to the ground, and had rival noble families executed without a second thought. We also have to mention Queen Fredegund. While not a king, she ruled as a de facto monarch and was one of the most ruthless figures of the era. She was a master of political assassination, orchestrating the murders of kings, nobles, and even bishops. Her ambition fueled brutal civil wars that tore the kingdom apart. Finally, from this dynasty, we have Dagobert I. He was infamous for his violent punishments and ruled with an iron fist, using fear and public executions to keep his nobles in line. Next, we move to the legendary Carolingian dynasty. At the top of the list is Charlemagne. We remember him as the Great, the father of Europe, but his methods were incredibly ruthless. He's responsible for the massacre of Verdun, where he ordered the execution of 4,500 captive Saxons in a single day. He forced conversions to Christianity under threat of death and completely destroyed tribes that resisted his rule. Following him, we have Charles the Bold, who crushed rebellions with extreme brutality and executed any nobles who dared to oppose him. And let's not forget Charles the Fat, another ruler known for his harsh punishments and violent crackdowns on any dissent. Now, let's enter the Capetian dynasty. You might be surprised to see Robert II, known as the Pious, on this list. Despite his nickname, he was the first French king to burn heretics at the stake and was known for brutally suppressing revolts. Philip I was equally ruthless toward his rebellious vassals, seizing their lands and destroying their castles to assert his dominance. His successor, Louis VI, the Fat, earned his reputation by crushing the so-called robber barons with brutal force, storming their fortresses and executing defiant lords. Then came Philip II, also known as Augustus. He was a master strategist who expanded the kingdom by destroying the castles of rebellious nobles, confiscating their lands, and violently expelling entire groups from his territory. And what about Louis IX, also known as Saint Louis? Yes, a literal saint, but his piety came with an iron edge. He ordered the public burning of over 20,000 Jewish holy books and enforced violent anti-heretic policies that showed no mercy. But perhaps the most ruthless Capetian of all was Philip IV, the Iron King. His reign was a masterclass in cruelty and calculation. He orchestrated the arrest, torture, and execution of the Knights Templar to seize their immense wealth, famously burning their Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, alive at the stake. He expelled Jewish people from France not once, but twice, confiscating their property each time. Philip ruled through intimidation and absolute power. Next, we arrive at the House of Valois, a dynasty that presided over the brutal 100 Years' War. Philip VI kicked things off by levying such brutal taxes on the peasantry that it led to mass starvation. When people revolted, he suppressed them with extreme violence. Then there was Charles VI, whose reign was marked by madness and chaos. While he was incapacitated, his advisors carried out ruthless political purges, and during moments of clarity, he ordered brutal executions during the kingdom's internal civil wars. But the master of this era was Louis XI, the universal spider. He is easily one of the most cunning and ruthless kings in all of history. He imprisoned his enemies, including powerful nobles, in tiny iron cages called fillettes. He ordered assassinations, masterfully manipulated his allies only to betray them, and systematically destroyed the powerful Duchy of Burgundy through relentless, harsh warfare. His son, Charles VIII, continued the family tradition of brutality during his Italian campaigns, which involved the brutal sacking of entire cities. The Renaissance brought no relief. Francis I, a great patron of the arts, was also a fierce persecutor of Protestants, ordering their execution and ruthlessly suppressing any revolts against his authority. This religious violence exploded under Charles IX. He was the king on the throne during the infamous St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, a coordinated wave of assassinations and mob violence against French Protestants that resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands. It remains one of the darkest events in French history. The Valois dynasty ends with Henry III, who wasn't afraid to get his own hands dirty. He famously ordered the assassination of his great rival, the Duke of Guise, right inside his own castle and ruthlessly suppressed the Catholic League uprisings. Finally, we reach the famous Bourbon dynasty. Henry IV, often remembered fondly for ending the wars of religion, first had to win them. His military campaigns were harsh, and he ordered the violent suppression of any rebels who stood in his way. His son, Louis XIII, ruled alongside the formidable Cardinal Richelieu. Together, they waged ruthless campaigns against the Protestant Huguenots and cemented royal power by destroying countless noble castles across France. And then we have Louis XIV, the Sun King. His glorious image hides one of the most ruthless reigns in French history. He instituted the Dragonnades, a policy of forcing Protestants to convert by quartering soldiers in their homes with permission to terrorize them. He crushed revolts with overwhelming violence and waged endless wars that caused immense civilian death tolls, all to glorify his own name. He systematically destroyed the economic power of anyone who wasn't Catholic. His successor, Louis XV, continued the trend. He made examples of rebels through massive, gruesome public executions and ruthlessly suppressed popular uprisings, particularly in regions like Brittany. Even the famously mild-mannered Louis XVI, the last king of the old regime, bears responsibility. He was the one who ordered the violent suppression of the early revolutionary crowds, a decision that would ultimately cost him his crown and his life. Even after the revolution, the ruthlessness continued with the final Bourbon king, Charles X. He brutally suppressed protests, launched a bloody invasion of Algeria, and his authoritarian rule was so severe that it sparked another revolution, which finally ended the Bourbon monarchy for good. From Clovis's bloody conquests to Charles X's final stand, the history of France is filled with monarchs who built their power on fear, violence, and absolute, unforgiving authority. These kings shaped a nation, but their legacies are written in blood. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the dark side of French history fascinating, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the past. See you next time.